All right, we are back with our series on the issues. We're continuing to press the candidates in this year's major midterm elections. When it comes to Pennsylvania's 16th congressional district, Republican Mike Kelly has held control in this area for more than a decade, and he wants to keep that seat. I sat down with Kelly earlier this week. 21 News is your place for politics, and we are continuing our series tonight on the issues with the race for Pennsylvania's 16th congressional district. Republican Mike Kelly joins us now as he is running for re-election. Thank you so much for being here.
Lindsay, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. You're outspoken. Inflation is the top issue among the voters. You actually are quoted making a statement in September. You blame the Biden administration for its, quote, reckless spending. If Republicans take the House, what would be your first order of business to try to tackle this top issue?
Well, there's so many things right now that we have to look at, but I would say right now, cost of living is just going off the charts. And then people say, well, what would you do about it? Well, first of all, open up our domestic supplies. There's no reason for us to be where we are. We were the leading exporter of oil in the world, right? Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. Whenever the cost of energy goes up, the cost of everything else goes up with it, whether it's a good or a service. We were in an excellent position. Why the president shut that down, nobody can possibly figure out.
Do you mean the Keystone XL pipeline? Is that what you mean by opening
but all of it, and the permitting difficulties. I don't think people understand when you apply for a permit, you have to go through agency. It takes a long time to do that. When your permitting process gets more difficult, people who are in that business say it's too hard to get even a permit here. We're going to back off. So when you shut down the domestic supply, and you look at anything, and where we're from especially, well, we were known for our coal, we were known for our oil, we're known for our natural gas, we're known for all these things that you look at to say, well, they talk about all the above. Well, let's not forget everything that's below. The United States, energy independent, greatest exporter of energy in the world, all of a sudden we are relying on the worst actors in the world to make up, to supplement what we've decided to shut down
Western
ourselves.
Pennsylvania is sitting on top of a lot of opportunity there to drill, same with this region.
Yeah.
But do you think that the faucet will flow immediately, or do you think it's going to take time? Because a lot of these companies have seen now the proposal to go more toward green energy. How would you counteract that concern for them?
Well, I think you have to give certainty to people that your permitting process is going to be simpler to get through, and that you're not going to be shut down midway through an effort to open whatever it is that you're going to open when you're using the natural
But what about the Inflation Reduction Act then? Would you then defund that? Because that invests money into the natural, not natural gas, but the electric vehicle charging stations.
Yeah, right,
Is that something that you would then essentially not fund?
Why in the world should hardworking American taxpayers be funding people who are buying vehicles that are over $100,000 because they're EVs and saying, you know what, we'll give them a $7,500 tax credit for buying that car? When that market's ready, you won't have to subsidize it. And that's, I think, when we look at that, see, market-ready products or services do not need to be subsidized. And when I say subsidized, that means some other taxpayer is paying extra taxes to boost that opportunity up and say, well, listen, I'll go ahead and buy that. Well, my goodness, if I can afford a $115,000, $120,000 car or truck, I don't need somebody else supporting it with a $7,500 tax credit. It's the same thing when you look at the college thing. Well, we're saying, well, college, we're going to make sure that the people that owe money on college, it's going to be forgiveness, loan forgiveness. It's not. It's loan transference. We're transferred it from the borrower and put it on to moms and dads who maybe weren't able to send their own son or daughter to college, but we're going to say to them, we're going to increase your taxes to make up for that transference of college
and that
fees.
issue is a hot button issue on both sides.
It
of the
should
student
be.
loan
It should
forgiveness.
be.
Now, real quick, you've been a key supporter of former President Trump. You rallied alongside with him in both presidential elections. If he were to run again in 2024, would you stand behind him, or do you think it's time for a change in leadership in Washington at this point?
If people go back and you study the game films of the 4 years that President Trump was in office, it would be hard to look at the performance of the United States across the board. An incredible economy, an incredible rebuilding of our military, much more respect throughout the world. It would be hard. Am I behind him? No, I'd stand right beside him. I would run with him to get America back to the greatness that we had whenever he was in office. I know there's people that say, well, I didn't like this or I didn't like that. I think the key question when you talk to people about President Trump, there's people who love him and there's people who don't. The people who tell me they don't like President Trump, I ask them, of all his policies, which one offended you the most? And they'll look at you and they'll go, well, it's not his policies, I just didn't like him. I said, well, let's make sure that we're looking at the right issues.
And real quick, one last question. What would be another issue that you think is primary if you get back into office, what you want to take care of when you go back to Washington?
Schools.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the most important elected position in any community is public school board. We have got to make sure that every single child has an equal opportunity to reach his or her greatness, whatever potential they have. Let's make sure they have the opportunity to get to that level. I mean, that is, our youth is described as 25% of our population. They're 100% of our future. I think when we look at it that way, we look at our children that way, I want to make sure that every single child has that opportunity. There's no reason why not. We can do that through policy. Some of these other things that we're doing right now, while they may be kind of tantalizing to people, they don't build strong roots. They don't build a strong foundation. They don't build a strong America.
All right. Congressman Mike Kelly, thank you so much for joining us here live, 21 News at 5 p.m. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good with you.
All right. Our coverage on the midterm elections is just heating up with 1 week left to go until Election Day. Of course, 21 News is your place for politics, on air, online with the latest Decision 2022 news.